Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Insider. I am Dan Labbe, Bud Shaw filling in for Chris Fedor again. Come on, Fedor.
It's a big job.
Questionable or something. I don't know. All right, we got a packed show for you today. We're going to talk Browns with Tom Reed. We're going to talk Indians with Paul Hoynes, opening day right around the corner. And we'll talk Cavaliers with Joe Vardon. But let's get right to it and bring in Tom Reed via phone. Tom, how are you?
Good, guys. How are you?
We're doing well, Tom. And look, the Browns are going to kind of get back at things next week. So before we get into RG3, before we get into a lot of that stuff, I was kind of curious. When you look at some of the second-year guys that are coming back, Cam Irving, Danny Shelton, Nate Orchard, any number of other guys, is there a second-year guy that kind of intrigues you as the Browns start to open up their off-season program?
Yeah, I'm actually writing about him today. I think it's Cam Irving. I think he's he's going to be the most scrutinized body in camp. Everyone's going to want to see if he did work hard in the off season. You should be able to see it. There's talk about Barkevius Mingo putting on some weight. I think we've heard that a couple times in the past. But I think Irving's the guy that people are going to be looking to because there's a starting spot right there, and there's a need to replace Alex Mack. And if he could somehow at least show some improvement and play that position, it would be a relief to the organization. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that or not. He's the guy, to me, is the most intriguing.
Tom, was it all physical with him last year, or did they question his technique and just his readiness to play at the NFL level in that regard?
I think it was everything, Bud. I think it was both. I think that he did not come in ready physically. I think that's the one thing he kind of admits. I'm not sure how hard he worked technically to get ready for his game. I know that from what I've heard, there was a very good chance of him could have gone out and worked with out in Arizona with Charles Bentley. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, that never happened. And I think that he would have benefited from that, to go learning from a former Pro Bowler. I think there had been a relationship there in the past. I'm not positive. And for whatever reason, that never transpired, and I think it hurt him not working with Charles or someone of that level. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what he did this offseason to kind of try to improve himself. And from mentally, one of the things that people always talk about Alex Mack, you've got to make all the calls. You've got to be responsible to make the checks and everything like that. So, is he going to be able to do that at the pro level? It's all intriguing stuff.
Yeah.
Tom, of course, there's always quarterbacks to talk about in Cleveland. With Robert Griffin III now on the roster, in your mind, do you view him as the Week 1 starter as it stands right now?
Yeah, because we don't obviously we don't know what their plan is. I think most of us are in a. I guess I don't want to speak for, but I think Bud's the same way. I think that they need to go ahead and still draft a quarterback. I would like to see him draft, at number 2, that quarterback. And I think that if they do that, I would still go in with the mindset of Robert's probably going to be the starter right away. But you have a competition, and we've seen in other cities. We've seen it in Seattle with what happened with RG3 and Flynn, and then we saw it in Oakland 2 years ago where Derek Carr went in there. He wasn't necessarily going to be the starter right away, but he played well enough. He ended up becoming the starter. The contract, I think, with RG3 is set up where, look, if he plays well, great. Maybe they re-sign him. If not, it's really a one-year investment. So, but I would think going in, he was going to be looked at as the starter, at least right now.
Tom, any scenario where Josh McCown and RG3 go to camp together?
Oh, that seems hard. It seems hard to imagine. I guess if they don't draft a quarterback, if they really don't draft a quarterback, maybe. But I don't see it. I think that I just think that Josh is going to probably end up moving on. That's a lot of money also to be having on the roster for 1 year. We'll see. I think there's, but I would put it at maybe 15%, especially if they draft a quarterback.
Tom, Josh Gordon, we're still kind of waiting to hear what's going to happen with him. The commissioner doesn't seem to be in any rush to rule on Gordon's future. That being said, if he is reinstated, how much faith do you think the Browns will put in him?
I think it'll have to be show me. Not to go back to the old coaching regime, but words into action. I mean, this is really it for Josh. I can't see him having another year like he had at the end of 2014 and really getting a huge payday from somewhere. He's going to have to prove, A, that he can stay on the field, and B, that he's willing to work with people. I think the one thing that may end up helping, at least in the short term, is that he clearly, he and RG3 were teammates. There's a relationship there, and I think that at least gets Josh in the building and motivated to kind of work with his buddy, and maybe gets him at least going off on the right foot with the organization.
The guy we saw who came back after suspension and ran the kind of routes he did, does he last in a Hugh Jackson camp?
No, he doesn't. I don't. It would be hard for me to say that. I can't see him doing that. Now, the one thing that in talking with people down in Cincinnati, they said that Hugh, one of his real strengths was working with guys like Chris Henry, guys like Ocho Cinco, T.J. Houston-Zada, who weren't easy guys to deal with, but he got the best out of them. Now, can Hugh spend that much time when he's a head coach? It's different than when he's a position coach. I don't know. I don't know if they'll have a very long leash with him. I mean, let's face it, they're not, Josh Gordon, a healthy and motivated and engaged Josh Gordon would be great for a team in a playoff push that thinks they're one player away. They're not one player away. I mean, Josh Gordon could have a great season and they could be back to win 4 games like he did when he had his great season a couple of years ago.
All right, Tom Reed joining us and dropping some Mike Pettinisms for us as well. Thanks for the time, Tom.
Oh, yeah, I already missed you.
All right, thanks, Tom. All right, so there you have it. Of course, with Josh Gordon, what was interesting? I saw a question on Twitter. Someone asked, who's been the best Browns skill player since 1999? And there's a couple guys you can make a case for, and Josh Gordon has to be on that list. That's a lot of talent to give up on. Yeah, but of course, we know the baggage.
What I'd like to know is this. It's hard to project that the league is going to take the Johnny Manziel friendship and all that stuff into account when they decide his reinstatement. But I wonder, should it bother the Browns? They're the ones that have to decide whether he's going to be part of their team. And I just wonder if that's a factor at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in that building and you're seeing Josh Gordon, a guy that you're counting on, spending a lot of time with a guy that you just released because of off-field issues. Yeah. When he's trying to get reinstated, Gordon that's got to be a little bit concerning.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, with RG3 and Josh McCown, another quarterback battle. We've seen it over and over again. Is that something the Browns should go into?
Well, was it Marvin Lewis who said he never believed in quarterback competitions, right?
Yeah.
He thought it was a bad idea. I wonder if Hugh Jackson feels the same way, and I wonder if that's one of the reasons. Well, money is clearly one of the reasons, and also Josh McCown's age. I'm sure they're going to move him, but if they didn't, my question would be, and I wrote it once, was could RG3 beat out Josh McCown in a head-to-head competition? I don't know. I mean, you think that the Browns must know that answer, or they wouldn't have made this deal.
Yeah, and look, we've never really had it here in Cleveland, where we've gone into an offseason and said, that's the guy. We don't even have to talk about the quarterback position. I mean, I wonder what did they talk about in New England? What have they talked about New England since Tom Brady took over?
Good point.
I don't know. All we have to talk about is quarterbacks. We're trying to get a hold of Paul Hoynes. If we can't, we'll get to Joe Vardon and talk some. Oh, I think we got him. Paul Hoynes is on the line. Hoynesy, how are you?
Good. I had my ringer turned off.
Oh, hey, nice job, Hoynesy.
Hoynesy, we thought maybe you got demoted to the bullpen too, like Trevor Bauer there for a second.
Yeah.
Hoynesy, you've been around Trevor Bauer enough. Can you step inside his head for a minute and tell us what he thought of that decision?
I don't think he was too happy with it. I really don't. The guy, he pitched 6 scoreless innings. He didn't walk a hitter against the Angels. It wasn't the Angels A lineup. Trout and Pujols were in there, but he looked pretty good. I watched it on MLB.com, and he looked very good. Struck out, I think, 6, 7 batters. And then he gets the news that he's going to the pen, and I don't know. It's a curious move. I guess they're kind of hamstrung in the point that he's out of options. options, so they can't send him to the minors, which is probably what ideally they want to do. But they had some other options. They could have sent Anderson to the minors, and they could have put Tomlin in the pen. So they obviously I think Anderson blew him away this spring. I really do. I think he came in throwing 95, 97. His control isn't great, but I think pure stuff-wise, they just couldn't send this kid down. And Tomlin really came back with a kind of a gutty performance against Seattle on Thursday night or Wednesday night, and struck out 10, 6 scoreless innings after just a brutal spring. So it ended up that way, the way it did. I'm still surprised, and I still think this isn't going to last long.
Yeah, Hoynesy, when I think of bullpen guys, I don't necessarily think of Trevor Bauer, who kind of has a history of walking a lot of batters, throwing a lot of pitches. He can let loose and put that mid-90s fastball in there, but he doesn't strike me as a bullpen guy.
No, he's not. He was in the bullpen last year, and he was throwing every day before games, and he wore himself out so they couldn't even use him in the game. So this is a guy that has his own routine, and he's not a matchup guy. They don't like long relievers per se. They don't use long relievers. They'd rather have a guy pitch 2 innings or 1 inning, 1 and a third if they run into a bad game, and kind of bridge the gap that way. So I don't see how this guy fits there, and I just think maybe. I was looking at the stats, and Tomlin and Anderson have better numbers against the teams they're going to play in April. 1-loss record per se, and they want to get off to a good start. So maybe that's behind us, and maybe at the end of April, depending how things are going, they make a move. Anderson goes down, Tomlin goes to the bullpen, Bauer gets back in the rotation. But right now, I just don't see how much. I don't think this guy's going to get a lot of work, is what I'm saying.
Paul, I've already heard a couple of national guys speculate that maybe Bauer is going to be traded at some point. Is this the best way to go about trading him, putting him in the bullpen?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're not going to use him. I guess there's 2 ways of looking at that. He can't screw up as a starter, and then you're not going to see him. So I don't know. I think Bauer is a special case. I really do. I think the Indians have devoted a lot of time, a lot of patience to this guy. They Mickey Callaway and Francona have kind of expanded their points of view on how to get a pitcher ready and how pitchers get ready. They've kind of brought this guy into the fold, and I don't know how many other organizations are willing to do that. And right now, they haven't got the return that obviously, if you put him in the bullpen, you're not happy with him. Or 2 other, I just, I don't see where it's going, and I think he's a difficult guy to trade. I really do, because he comes with a handle with care tag.
Hoynesy, the other element of this is Josh Tomlin. This is a guy that just kind of keeps hanging on. I think a lot of fans have sort of, they've given up on this guy or been frustrated with him or whatever, but he kind of keeps putting together strong springs, some strong stretches in the regular season, and he keeps hanging on.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, last year was a perfect example. He came up after the shoulder surgery. He didn't get here till August, and then had 10 great starts. I think he went 7-2 with a sub 3 ERA, 3.00 ERA. Was great. And if the Indians had been in a stretch drive, that's just what you need. And the same, Anderson kind of gave him the same thing. And so I don't, so the thing is, can Tomlin stay healthy all year? That's the key. And he hasn't done that for about 4 or 5 years, and maybe that's why you've got Bauer in the pen.
Paul, we all know how much they love Josh Tomlin as a teammate and his approach and all that. Do you think that, and the fact that Bauer is as quirky as he is, do you think that, and complicated as he is, did that figure into any of this decision, or do you think this was purely who's throwing the best and what teams are on the schedule in the first month?
I think that probably played into it a little bit. They might not want to say that, but it probably had a part of it. But I think, I just think what Tomlin showed them at the end of last season kind of carried over. They signed him to the 2-year extension just before camp. And they wanted him to be in the rotation. You could tell that from the start of camp. They wanted him to be the 5th guy. And I think Anderson just kind of messed things up a little bit or opened their eyes by kind of sneaking past him and knocking Bauer out of the equation. But I do think, they like Tomlin's attitude. And, Tomlin even told the reporters covering the team that he'd gladly go into the bullpen. So, he's got a great attitude, and I think that plays to a lot of managers and a lot of front office.
All right, Paul Hoynes, our Indians beat reporter. Opening day, of course, is Monday. Hoynesy, thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Paul.
Trevor Bauer, just a strange. He's always been a guy. He's an interesting guy.
He is a very
interesting.
He's a
fascinating guy, but so far just has not been able to put it together with any consistency.
And I know, publicly they've been very supportive of him, and they've gotten something out of him. But, privately they find him to be very difficult sometimes in taking advice and in incorporating that advice into his routine and his approach. Tomlin, on the other hand, Francona would probably list him as the top guy in the locker room.
How many more pitches than Tomlin do you think Trevor Bauer throws? Like 10?
16.
All right. Let's switch gears and talk Cavaliers. We bring in part of our Cavaliers team, covers LeBron James and the Cavs, Joe Vardon. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing just fine, guys.
All right, Joe. The Cavs coming off of that loss to Houston, and obviously no LeBron James, but it's still a concerning loss because Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are supposed to be players who can carry a team even without their superstar. Were you concerned by that loss?
No, and here's why. Because I've given up on trying to find any new nuggets or information or, intel about this team in the regular season as far as how it relates to what's going to happen in the playoffs. Like, we know who they are as far as this regular season goes. They're a team that when they feel like it can be the best team maybe in the league. And then there are nights when they just don't. I think that against the Rockets, you had another case of they flexed their muscle early. They became disinterested. The Rockets have James Harden, who's as good of a scorer as we have in this league. And you saw what happened. That means, I think, virtually nothing for the playoffs. I fully expect LeBron to be great. I expect Kyrie and Kevin to play nicely as second and third options. And the rotation will tighten, and I think they're going to win a lot of games. But I can't. We've done this all year. I can't concern myself with any more of these confusing losses because it's just this is a team that's thinking of other things.
Joe, are you any more convinced now than you were, say, at the beginning of the season that there's a team in the East that could keep them from the finals?
No, I'm really not. I mean, I don't even. And you know what? But I may regret this in mid-May when they're 2-2 with the Heat or something like that. But no, I don't see it. I've never bought into that just because in a 7-game series, there's just too much talent on this team versus everybody else in the league. I mean, look, the Raptors are hanging in there. They're 2 games back, but it's like the Heat, who everybody's worried about. They're 10 games back. I mean, they're 10 games back for a reason. Yeah. I can't buy it. At the same time, I don't see them winning in the finals. So, they obviously have a lot of work to do, but from an East perspective, I'm still very bullish on this team.
Joe, the external perception of this team is that they're kind of a mess behind closed doors. Is that a fair perception, or is that just kind of something that's getting drawn from, LeBron's tweets and things like that? Is this team in better shape internally than people think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think that it's a particularly close and happy group, but you don't have to be. I mean, sometimes people like to make an extra point of that about, camaraderie and togetherness and whatever, but the Lakers won all kinds of championships with Kobe and Shaq on the same team, and they never liked each other when they were together. That doesn't have to be what it's about. You know, LeBron said today that the team was actually in a really good place. They were in a good place mentally with the coach, and that their spirits were right with Ty in place. And maybe that's true, and maybe, you know, there's some wanting there, but I don't think that this team is, quote, a mess. I think it's a team that has people at different points in their lives, and there's still some, you know, work to do as far as Kevin and Kyrie gaining LeBron's full respect and trust after some gains made last year. And, you know, LeBron has to continue to be patient. But no, I mean, I think that they are what they are, and they're you know, they're in a reasonably good place from a mental perspective heading in.
You know, we asked the question all year long, Joe, whether they were a better team under Lou than they were under Black. How would you answer that right now with 2 weeks to go, basically?
Yeah, I still I stick to this one as well, that I think they are better, if only because they don't have that crutch. You know, when they would lose games under David, it was David's fault, no matter what. And now they don't have that. And I think, you know, has that led to like a more concerted effort during the regular season? No, it hasn't. But what it has done is it's taken away the excuse. And I think that when you get into the postseason and things get more difficult, I believe that this experience of being without David and having a guy who they did respect more in Ty in that room with them, I think that will cause them to internalize their mistakes and their shortcomings come playoffs, and they will, you know, take a larger responsibility. You know, when they lost to the Bulls in Game 1 of the conference semis last year, there was no like, we have to do a better job defending Pau Gasol, or we need to do a better job of putting the ball in the hole. It was, well, the game plan was really silly for how we were guarding the pick and roll, and I hope that changes. So this time you won't hear that. This time it'll be, if and when they lose, you know, we have to be better, and we will be. I think that'll help them.
Joe, it is April tomorrow. Playoffs are almost here. This has been a long grind of a regular season. Thanks for the time.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
Do you believe this team can flip a switch before we get to your spinoffs?
You know, I think it's possible in that I think in the first series they're going to face a team that they're clearly going to be dominant. You know, you would think, or clearly better than. And I think once that happens and they play together and they win a series, I think it kind of, everybody gains from that, and maybe that joy that they think is lacking resurfaces.
All right, take it away.
All right. Well, the Indians open the season in a few days, and the Cavaliers are a couple weeks away from the start of a postseason that many believe will take them to a second NBA Finals in 2 years. So what better time to try to make sense of the Browns' thinking on signing RG3 and how that might affect what they do in the April draft? Tomorrow, after all, is April 1st, which seems a perfect time to get serious about the biggest date on Cleveland's football calendar. The Browns draft being held in a month that annually starts with annoying practical jokes is, by the way, only a coincidence. I've done a number of radio interviews since the RG3 signing, and all the questions are pretty much the same. Is that signing reason to pass on a quarterback at the top of the draft? I know what I've answered. Today, I'll let you answer. Quiz says it's simple. The Browns should pass on taking a first-round quarterback this year. I love this name. Psychotic Kev, a name he chose, not one I gave him after reading his comment, says the Browns have their quarterback and need to replenish a bare roster, which he now points out is the responsibility of Kashi. I thought his name was Sashi. Quarterbacks don't come in Kashi cereal boxes or any other kind for that matter. You don't just pour one out when the rest of your team is ready to be competitive. You have to groom one. Denker tells us no quarterback at number 2 is ready to start in the NFL, so if everyone is a project, why not Kevin Hogan of Stanford? Well, I'm not sure how taking a lesser quarterback and hoping he develops is a better plan than taking the most talented one and grooming him carefully. Our final commenter says he's convinced the Browns will take one at number 2 and that any plan to groom him will be scrapped by Game 3, if not sooner. Way back in 1999, 1,000 years ago, I don't even think Dan was alive, Dwight Clark swore to me that the Browns had a plan for Tim Couch and that he wouldn't be sacrificed early in his career, that the Browns knew it took time for a rookie to get settled, and they didn't want to rush him and didn't want to scar him. That plan had lasted exactly 1/2 against Pittsburgh in a 43-0 loss. Here we are 17 years later with the Browns given a chance again to do it right. Are they on the same page? We may not know that until September. For now, my opinion, take Jared Goff, groom him, give him some time, and don't let circumstances that arise in a season destined to fall well short of the playoffs change that plan. You don't have to be from Harvard to see that the signing of RG3 doesn't mean the Browns have their quarterback, only that they have a quarterback. Dan?
To make the case for taking the more talented guy, too, let's go back and, to the comment that said by week 3 or whatever, if you draft a guy, he's probably going to have to play,
sure,
right? Because RG3 gets hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know if Austin Davis gets hurt or not, but he probably does.
Yeah, we know how it's gone here for many of those years. So do you want to say, well, let's not take the guy that we think is most talented because we don't want to spend the number 2 pick. Let's go get Kevin Hogan, and then suddenly in week 4 he's your starter. The rest of the team suffers because there's a lesser player at that position. I think this is the time. And this is the coach to go get the guy that's the best quarterback and commit to him. They haven't done that since Tim Couch.
Yeah, we're getting there. Again, same with the Cavs playoffs. It's April. It's almost draft time. We'll almost have some answers for these things. Until then, thanks to Tom Reed, thanks to Joe Vardon, thanks to Paul Hoynes. He's Bud Shaw sitting in for Chris Fedor. I'm Dan Labbe. Thanks for watching.